Welcome everyone. We have folks still trying to get in. For some reason, it's slow to load. Um, I'll let them in before it started, but um, because he's joining. Um, oh, let me take myself off of line camera here. Hi everyone, great to see you. Welcome to this space. This is the Ecology Network space. This is where we're coming together to share the work that we're doing. Um, in our work is really cut out for us, right? It's getting more intense every day. So I want us to just come into the space because, like Lawrence said, everybody here has a true and deep, compassionate love for the environment, for nature, for each other. And this is one of my favorite meetings of the week because of that, because we come to this space with that deep care and love for our environment. And just before this call started, our new interns just sent um, this quote, and it says, a friend shared this in the need to lean into joy in this dark time, which might sound counterintuitive and absurd, but I keep thinking about it and now I'm sharing it here. So I hope it resonates. Authoritarians, this is from Heather Cox Richardson. Authoritarians can not rise if they are strong communities and people are acting with joy. That is, you need despair and anger in order for an authoritarian to rise. Whatever those things are that bring you to the community, do them and do them with joy. Don't stop doing things because that you love because you're scared, because that's actually a real form of resistance, right? And we come to this work with that same kind of spirit of joy and love, for the environment, for democracy, for each other, for the all of the animals and the creatures living on this planet. As you hear, if it's not frogs, it's the puppies in my background. there's always there's always some loving animal noises, or the chickens, or the but I'm really glad to be here with you all and really grateful. Hi Fernanda, so good to see you too. Great to see you, Todd. Haven't seen you in a couple of months. I'm glad you're here. Moji, um, Tim, been a while. Hi, Lynn. Good to see you again. Mark, good to see you in the space. So we're here today, again to talk about things that we're doing and what is important to us, and how we come into the space really does matter. I am eternally grateful to be here with y'all, and I want to kind of we had started doing our reports from leaders first, and kind of punching up and pushing up against time limits. So let's go ahead and take a couple of deep breaths as we ground ourselves in this conversation. Lawrence has been doing some really exciting things. Fernanda's going to share some of her elements of things that she's doing that coincides. We're going to stay on that same theme of trees, because they are the lungs of our planet, right? And that's where we get our oxygen. And so let's take that moment to breathe in a deep breath all the way to the bottom of our lungs and hold it there. If you feel good, go ahead and close your eyes. And then just release that anxiety of the day if you happen to have looked at the news, or uh, at all in the last week. I'm sure some of that's being pent up. And take another deep breath, and we're going to let all of the negativity out, and we're going to breathe in pure joy, wonderful oxygen that is given to us by trees in our environment, and how important the grasses are and the plants and flowers. And then we'll breathe out one more time. Lawrence, I want to, many of y'all probably already know Lawrence. He is a Move to Amend, We the People Amendment champion, who is, I'd say, one of the most, I always joke that he's always most on message when it comes to Move to Amend. He doesn't allow anyone to get him sidetracked on what he's doing and his focus and whatever he's doing. He stays extremely focused in that way, and I love that, and I'm inspired by that. In everything he does, he brings that same kind of love and commitment, and whether it's his peace work or his environment work or his democracy work. And he recognizes those intersections. So I want to turn it over to you, Lawrence, to go ahead and take it away and let me know when you want me to share my screen.
Thank you. Could you start off by sharing your first one? I like that slide. It's from California, and it's looks like California in the late winter and early spring.
Maybe somebody can give me a little tip on why this isn't sharing the right way. Can y'all see that appropriately?
I get hung up on that a lot too, why sometimes it shares the whole entire screen instead of just the slideshow, but that'll work if
Yeah, you can go to the slideshow. That's the option that's right there at the top.
So I just want to thank everybody for having me here, and just one second. My wife's not used to me not having my headset on. So it's really a pleasure to be here because I've never really shared other things that I do besides labor and Move to Amend, but I have a secret life that is all about nature. And it's actually the reason why I volunteer with Move to Amend and labor, because I love natural places, wildlife, and in my lifetime, I've been watching it slip away and disappear, and all around me. But at the same time, really close to me, I've been growing things thanks to some teachers that I had that got me started really young. And you know, Move to Amend does a visioning program. I'll talk about it later, but you know, I don't have to vision a lot of what could be because I was so lucky to actually live it as a child. I had a science teacher in 6th grade that had us catching and collecting and tagging monarchs and tracking them throughout the world with the data that we'd be getting back. And in 7th grade, my science teacher let us build a huge nature study area where we planted all the plant communities of California. And what you're seeing right now, that was a little bit of what we had in the middle of our nature study area, where we created the Central Valley in the center and had the coastal ranges and the desert around that, and then Sierras and the redwoods. And then on parent-teacher days, the students would take the parents on a field trip of the plant communities of California and show them all of our native plants. So yeah, I think you can go to the next slide. So the reason I put this in is because a lot of science, my background is in science and wildlife biology and restoration ecology. And a lot of science has sort of been in their ivory towers and not really been thinking too much about actually doing the work of saving nature. But a couple of years ago, the California Academy of Sciences came out with a brand new mission statement, and it just blew me away. And it just made me so happy because they've been around since the 1800s, but it took until now for them to realize that their mission better be to regenerate the natural world through science, learning, and collaboration. Next slide, please. Because we've been losing so much, they recognize that, you know, science shouldn't just be for the sake of science. It should really be applied science. And that by working together with people that are not only identifying what's wrong, but trying to fix it. And so my argument also would be for them to get behind Move to Amend. They're probably, well, I haven't tried that yet, but every time I talk about stuff like this, I think of more things I can do for Move to Amend because we need to grow this movement larger. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about 3 different projects that I've been working on. One over quite a few years. One is here in the San Francisco Bay Area in San Leandro, where I grew up. And then I moved 50 miles to the east to be able to afford to buy a house as a working Teamster warehouseman. And the Central Valley of California is real flat. And so that the houses and streets don't flood, they put these depressions in the ground called storm drain retention ponds. And when I saw them, I thought it would be a really great place to do habitat restoration because I was so lucky. I had worked in my field for a couple of years, and one of the projects I worked on was in habitat restoration. And it took a lot of work, but with networking with other people and getting permission from all the different agencies like the police and the fire department, which are worried about fires and, you know, bad people hiding in there. There's just a million people that get involved when you want to do something for the community. But we started working on storm drain ponds that looked pretty much like this. But even like this, they were pretty good habitat in the during migration in the fall and spring. Migrating shorebirds would stop in there, and birds like stilts, big type of sandpiper is really pretty. You may have seen them in your area. We're actually trying to nest in some of them, and so I thought we could make the habitat a little better and make up for all the riparian trees that we were losing as they kept developing and cutting down more and more of the cottonwoods and willows and oak trees. Next slide, please. So that's a picture of me from a while ago. My son, my youngest son, is 28 now. That's when he was a lot younger. And one of the ponds that we were just getting started in. And next slide, please. So this is so amazing to me that we just happened to have this presentation today. And my life has been so out of balance for the last year and a half because just the idea of my taxes being used to kill thousands of people and genocide has caused me to work very, very closely with Jewish Voice for Peace. And I've been learning a lot about the Jewish faith. And today is actually Tu B'Shvat, which is the birthday of the trees. And it's a time of tree planting and talking about trees and restoring trees. And I think that's just absolutely amazing. And if you look at the cultures of the world and the religions of the world, so many of them, especially the ones that have been doing fairly well for a long time, have learned about our relationship with nature and that we, you know, need a clean environment. We need clean water. We need everything that trees give us. And we need to give to the trees so that they give back to us. And just a wonderful thing you can learn about by doing a search about that today and learn a little bit more about another culture if you're not already Jewish. Next slide, please. So this is a pond that is very close to where I raise my children. And at one time, we had about, I would say, about 50 or so trees in there that we planted as 1 and 5 gallon trees, very small. And many of them were 30, 40 feet tall. And overnight, the city came back in with a new public works director and noticed that a few of these ponds had a bunch of trees and the other ones didn't. And they started to cut all the trees down. And the neighbors came in when they noticed and started yelling at them and got them to stop. And so a few of the trees survived the cutting down, Luckily, one of the tallest western sycamore trees, which is about almost 40 feet tall now, still has nesting Swainson's hawks that return from Mexico every year and nest right in front of us and raise their young, and it's wonderful to see. And we're getting permission right now to start this program up again. That I originally started in 1980 with 5 storm drain retention ponds, and since then, 2 of them have become city parks, and those trees are all fine, and the community really loves them. And most of them are fenced off though, so that the city can rapidly pump a lot of water into these ponds, to prevent street flooding. And that actually is beneficial for wildlife too, because that's probably one of the reasons why the Swainson's hawk is nesting here, is because nature does have a little protected spot. And in Lathrop alone, Lathrop, California, in the Central Valley, I'll show you where that is on a map in a minute. We have about 35 storm drain ponds like this. And so you can imagine how they could add up and really create some wildlife habitat. Next slide, please. Here's another spot of what they can look like after they grow for a little while. Next slide. And we did a field trip with a local native plant group, and that's us. That's a group of folks getting to see these ponds. Next slide, please. And this spot was on the same field trip, and it's just a few miles from that pond, and it's actually the levee of the San Joaquin River. And a really rare mammal lives there. It's the most endangered, critically endangered mammal in the state of California, and it's called the riparian brush rabbit. And its claim to fame is it's the only rabbit species that climbs trees. And that's because our subject is trees. No, not really. That's because from years and millennia of living in the Central Valley, where floods are a regular occurrence, that's how they survived during floods. They very good swimmers, and they climbed trees. And luckily, a population was found right in town, and it looks like a high security bunny prison. It actually has 24-hour surveillance cameras all over, and I think sections of it have razor wire. But the rabbits are doing good in there, and I'm hoping that someday we can create enough habitat outside the fence that we can free the bunnies. Next slide, please. And there's one right there, really cute. And ironically, one of my best friends, he's not around anymore. He was very, very old when we were real close. He found a whole population of these that Fish and Game and U.S. Fish and Wildlife didn't know about, and won a big award because it increased the genetic diversity by about 30%. Next slide, please. So what I'm talking about is I'm right now where the blue dot is in San Leandro, California. So it's, right close to San Francisco. And right where it says Tracy, straight to the right, just to the left of that is a small town of Lathrop. And if you look at that whole area of the Central Valley, later on I'm going to talk about the Native Plant Society, the new chapter that we formed. It covers all of the San Joaquin Valley. So pretty much everything you see in the center there of Lodi, Stockton, Manteca, Tracy, Modesto, Turlock, and to the south, quite a ways. It's a big county. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to mention this, the radical gathering is because, like I said, I had this most amazing childhood where I just sort of brushed on it before, where I was able to have this nature study area and actually, take parents teach adults about our native plants when I was a child. And that goes back to reimagining, what our public schools could be like nowadays. It's like children nowadays couldn't even, or most people couldn't even comprehend our public schools having programs like that. In high school, we had a field station to do studies on the bay, and every Friday we'd go out to our field station and collect water samples and bring back samples to the lab and run dissolved carbon dioxide, keep record of all that. And we had a research vessel at Point Mulati near Richmond. And about once a month, we'd go out on the research ship and do seine netting for plankton and identify them, and just, amazing things. And so I'm hoping that Move to Amend will do another radical gathering soon where, especially at a time like this, where things look so bleak, where we imagine the world that we could have and the world that we deserve. Next slide, please. So now I'm back in San Leandro, leaving Lathrop. This is where I am right now. And a group of us got together and formed Homegrown Habitat San Leandro. And we're in the San Leandro, their website. And we have a display garden at a local library. And I discovered all these wonderful people by organizing to resist Trump in the first Trump administration. I hosted a resist Trump meeting at our local library and met these amazing people. And out of that came other organizations. So like this one. So really cool. Next slide, please. I'll show you a little bit of what we've been doing in San Leandro. So this is a native California Valley oak. It's one of the largest species of oak tree in the world, and it's endemic to California, especially in the Bay Area and Central Valley. Really fantastic tree, grows really fast, it takes flooding, and we found a few that are never got chopped down. Somehow the developers missed a couple when they tried to destroy all of nature. Next slide, please. And so this is a coast live oak. When you hear of Oakland, California, it was named for this tree, the coast live oak. And there's still a park left in Oakland where there's a big grove of these trees that also were never cut down. So that's wonderful for restoration biologists and local concerned citizens, because if you look at the ground close, you'll see lots of acorns, the seeds of an oak tree. And we're taking those and growing new trees and planting them all through town. So we're not just getting the same species of plants, but we're getting the direct descendants of the trees that are perfectly adapted to our soils and the conditions in San Leandro. Next slide, please. So as part of what we're doing, our tree planting programs, not all of these are native trees, but we're working with the city and almost every community, probably in the world, but especially in the United States, is struggling now to put the native trees back on their list of approved city trees, park trees, and street trees. And it's challenging to get folks to change because the nurseries, mostly have the trees from all over the world and not necessarily the native ones that provide so much good for food, for wildlife. And while you're looking at this slide, I can tell you a story about two trees. So I showed you earlier the Valley Oak, which is the real big one. The largest largest oak tree in California. And then there's another tree. You probably heard of ginkgo biloba. It's become a popular street tree because it turns beautiful yellow in the fall. And that's the same ginkgo that some people take to increase blood supply, and it's supposed to make you smarter, although it gives me a headache. I don't know why. But the ginkgo supports no native insects at all. It might as well be made of plastic. It evolved in a part of China where there's lots of insects that feed on it, but they produce, as they co-evolve with their predators, with insects, they have sort of chemical warfare against the insects, and the insects learn how to deal with the chemicals. And but of course, all of our native insects don't know how to deal with those compounds in the ginkgo leaf. So not a single insect. A valley oak or a live oak can support over 1,000 different species of insects by comparison, and drug warfare, and literally millions of insects that feed just huge numbers of birds and other animals. So big difference. Next slide, please. Here's us putting trees in. This one's kind of nice. It's the coast redwood, which does quite well. It's just slightly out of its natural range, which would be probably just 5 or 6 miles from here. But because they do well, along the streams that come out of the hills towards the bay, they do well in areas that get irrigation with lawns. Next slide, please. This, you can see the community helping out. So this is the library where we have our demonstration garden in pots, and we have regular events where we teach people. And can I get a time check, please? Next slide, please. That's another community event we did where we were teaching people how to press plants and identify plants. And we always have different themes. Sometimes it's plants that you can eat, but every time we also give away a lot of plants. We've been propagating them right here in our our library and giving lots of plants away and acorns and seeds. Next slide, please. Pretty please. With sugar on top. that works too. So we give presentations also. And next slide. And that's okay. These are just showing things that we've been doing. Next slide, please.
Okay.
It's okay if you skip a couple. They're just ideas. This is a neighbor's house right around the corner. Stephanie Prugel, she's a core member of our native group, our homegrown habitat San Leandro group. And she's kind enough to let us use her garden for the Bringing Home the Natives garden tour that the California Native Plant Society does every year. And boy, what a lovely garden she planted. Next slide, please. All California natives, by the way. Another view of her garden. Next slide. Next slide. I love Indian paintbrush. Next slide. And so now we're going back to the Central Valley again, because just recently, a group of us got together and formed a new chapter of the California Native Plant Society called the North San Joaquin Valley chapter. Next slide. And it's a little bit about what we do, but we actually do a lot. We focus on conservation of rare plants and native plants, and of course that creates habitat for animals, and sort of plants are the backbone of everything that I love. I'm more into wildlife, but you can't have wildlife without habitat, and wildlife management is mostly about habitat management. Next slide, please. So this is one of our gardens that we have in Modesto as part of the South San Joaquin Valley chapter. Next slide, please. That's one of our garden signs. We're also getting rid of invasives. Next slide. And this is up near Sacramento. It's a native plant nursery, and they're growing goldfields here, which is the one you saw on the very first slide. And people can let these go to seed, and they sell the seeds, and they're being used for restoration of large areas by, say, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Fish and Game, and also for home gardeners that want to put the natives back. And of course, they're really great for pollinators. Next slide, please. And I think we're back in that garden again in Modesto. Next slide. So not on top of just, growing habitat, it's also really good to grow food because, we want resilient communities. And so some friends of mine that are part of our habitat group are disabled, and they're not able to take care of their trees very well or prune them. So I drew up a little plan for them to buy some trees, and I planted them, and I'm exfoliating them so they can, put their wheelchair back there and pick their own fruit. Next slide, please. And one of the most things about planting anything is watching them grow, and they're even much bigger now. And this year will be the third year, and they're going to get just huge amounts of fruit. And it's just wonderful what you can do with just one little strip on the side of your house. Next slide, please. And the main reason I do all this is to attract wildlife. And I think that's the main reason a lot of people do it, is because when you bring the natives back, you bring back the native wildlife too. And it's just so diverse and amazing the way it comes from out of nowhere. So that's what gives me joy, and sort of in the word recreation, to recreate, your spirit and your energy to do good in the good fight. I need nature. I need to be working in nature. And I need to be seeing the rewards and see nature all around me. Next slide, please.
Great picture.
Oh, thank you. I took that myself. So this guy just popped up out of nowhere a few years ago, and I know he didn't pop up out of nowhere. He's been working his whole life, and incredibly successful back east somewhere. And he wrote a best-selling book, and now a series of best-selling books. And in fact, we just played a video off the internet of him at a local library, and it was a sellout. Over 220 people showed up. It was free, of course, but they couldn't even hardly fit in the room. Luckily, the fire department didn't show up. But if you can just look him up online, either look up Homegrown National Park or Doug Tallamy. And most of what I've been talking about is in California, but this guy is working in the East Coast for nationwide. And you can just plug into it and get all the resources you need no matter where you live and become part of the revolution. Next slide, please. So you saw number 1 down there. Number 2 is remove invasives. Next slide. And so his little idea that he popped in his mind with him and his students, now he has, over 43,000 people involved. And by everybody planting just, a quarter acre or an eighth of an acre or just one pot of native plant and reporting it, so far they've restored 105, almost 106,000 acres of habitat across the country. And his concept is that if everybody gets involved with putting some native plants where you live, that the combined area could be the largest national park in the United States. So pretty cool stuff. Next slide, please. And that's the website. Of course, it's so easy to just search Doug Tallamy also, and put in Doug Tallamy or put in Homegrown National Park and YouTube, and all his YouTube talks will come up with incredible photographs and statistics that'll knock your socks off. And that's it.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you. It's getting a little chilly out here.
Me too. It's
that was
really cold here.
wonderful. I love the pictures. I love all of the work. Really excited. I'll look into that. We do have some people that are really into it, and that's what I want to do too. But I want to open it up for any questions, any thoughts, any feedback for Lawrence.
If I don't have any, I could mention a couple other things while people are thinking of any questions.
I'm just going to say that I'm coming to visit you in San Francisco, Lawrence.
Oh gosh. Whenever you do, you always have a place to stay, either in and that includes anybody on the call. Whether you're in the East Bay, San Francisco East Bay, you can stay here, or in the Central Valley, I have at least a room that you guys could stay, especially if you're okay with couch surfing.
So
California is a must-see place. It's just unbelievable how many habitats we have in such a small area, and any place you go will just blow you away, whether it's the coast, the redwoods, our oak woodlands, which there's restoration happening everywhere. The Thule elk are coming back. They're already wander the hills right near here. They're at Point Reyes. They're taking the fences down and letting them go all over Point Reyes now. Burrowing owls are being restored. Virtually everything that was wiped out during my lifetime is coming back. The condors, I thought my children would never get to see a condor like I got to see. And now there's a Arizona population. There's a Mexican population down by Baja. There's the original population in the Tehachapis and just north of Los Angeles. And then a big population that's at Big Sur and Pinnacles National Monument just south of here. And they've been so good at reproducing it with the help of all the conservation efforts that now the condors are regularly flying over the Bay Area and past the Bay Area and going around Mount Diablo to the north. And on the southern population is going up the Sierra Nevadas up to Sequoia and Yosemite. So if you're anywhere at Yosemite or anywhere in the Bay Area, you could look up and see a California condor with a 10-foot wingspan, and it'll just blow you away.
Yeah, that's amazing. I remember.
But one more population too that they just put in Northern California with the Yurok Indian tribe, which is managing that population up in Redwood National Forest. So yeah, crazy. Don't get me talking about wildlife.
I was living there when they started their release. That was wonderful. So exciting.
Mm-hmm.
That reintroduction. There was so much energy for it.
Mark's back.
Good. Okay. I see you, Moji and Mark.
Hi, thank you for this beautiful presentation, Lawrence.
I have a crazy question to ask you. I'm sure you've had a lot of time in nature and contemplating. Is there something, i- are we suffering from some kind of a collective sickness whereby, as Sadi of Shiraz, the Sufi poet of Iran 800 years ago, wrote, we are sitting at the end of the branch and cutting the base. Is there something about our age or our, I dare to say, species that at this point is ecocidal, suicidal? Do
Yeah,
you have any thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree. And I think it, like everything, goes back to capitalism and, commodifying nature and trying to turn nature and resources into dollars, and chasing dollars is poison, and it's poison to our spirits, and it's poison to the planet, and it's poison to, our psyche. And when you're inside a system, when you're trapped inside a system of corporate rule, it's so hard to be objective for most people, that you have to it's much easier for cultures to see from the outside the sickness that we're suffering from. I understand that big sections of Japan, actually worship trees and worship nature, and of course the indigenous peoples of the whole world do the same thing, and that's why they survived, for thousands of years. And capitalism isn't a system designed to last. It's designed to do crazy things.
Certainly have. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, can you hear me? Oh, all right. Okay. No, I don't really have a lot to add. I just wanted to say to Lawrence that I had no idea that you've been this deep into the preservation of nature this long. We met, I think, for the first time in 2017 at the national conference there at Trinity College when we had the bird calls at the end of the session. And we lobbied together in Washington, and I knew you were into nature. I had no idea the depth of your involvement, though, and I appreciate it. I want to say thanks. That's
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and that was. I hope we can do something like that real soon again, because I think it's a good way to spend some time lobbying and grow our leaders.
Yeah,
agreed.
just a little tidbit. When we were in Chicago for the March on the DNC, um, Lawrence joined us there, and it was this little park area with some lovely trees, and but it was a little coffee shop patio. They had seating out there, and all these birds came around, and they were all around Lawrence. It was, we were all at the table, but that you could tell that they were all around Lawrence. It was
Katie
it was
said,
really cool. I wish I would have had that
I
picture
went there
handy.
every day, and the only time the birds came like that was when Lawrence was there. It was really super magical.
The St. Francis of Move to a Man.
Yeah, St.
I'm
Lawrence.
glad I was on mute because I let out a really big laugh on that one.
Yeah, and I wish I would have had the heart emoji wouldn't work when you were going through your presentation, Lawrence, but I had plenty of them coming your way. Go ahead, Greg.
Hey, Lawrence, just tremendous. Really appreciate great photos. Two things. First, what's the name of the oak that Oakland is named after? What's the name of the species?
It's the coast live oak.
The Coast Live Oak. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Cool. And you being connected with various environmental organizations, local for the most part, but no doubt quite familiar with national. Mutumen is trying to form what we're calling strategic partnerships. Certainly trying to engage with lots of organizations within a single sphere, healthcare, peace, and the like, but really trying to form a a more closely connected, trusting relationship with, maybe one. Is there one that you have run into that you would recommend that we should especially try to reach out to, that might, be open to? I mean, certainly the need to do the immediate work of saving and preserving and resisting and the like is so important, but that in part has an understanding of the systemic need to deal with systemic change beyond, the saving of dealing with system change. Anyone come to mind?
Well, the main question that I have for you is, you know, the tax status of these organizations. I think that's one of the main things that they feel like they can't get involved.
Oops, lost your audio. Can't
Lawrence,
hear
we
you.
lost your audio.
Oh, shoot.
We can't hear your audio, Lawrence.
Did you hear me or no?
Yeah.
Okay, Greg, I wanted your opinion on if that's a stumbling block for national organizations that work in conservation.
Well, it is a good point. 501c3. 501c3, though, can still connect with 501c4s in doing education, in doing, even to a certain extent, reaching out and doing lobbying, and certainly communications. So there's lots of ways to still form some significant partnerships without being a quote unquote lobby focused organization.
Yeah, so there's the groups that I've worked with a lot are the Audubon Society, the Nature Conservancy, and here in California, the California Nature Conservancy. They're a fantastic organization of ecologists that try to save the most critically endangered habitat for the most critically endangered wildlife and wildlife corridors. And they buy land. They buy big pieces of land, millions and millions of dollars worth, and then turn it over to public agencies like BLM or Fish and Game or the state parks in California or whatever, and then take that money once they sell it to them and go buy more land. So, they're really amazing, and I've worked with them quite a bit, especially at the Cosumnes River Preserve, one of the few undammed rivers in California. But I'll have to think about that more. And I think they all should be. I mean, they really should. If they can legally be part of this movement, then they've got to be. And I think this is the time right now. Like, this is the time for healing ourselves and restoring ourselves at the same time that we build movements. And because now, everybody kept saying, everybody that I talk to, we don't really want to think about Constitution, this, or, we're dealing with the immediate crisis at hand. Well, now we're always in a constitutional crisis because they don't want to think about the Constitution. I mean, if you want democracy, you better be thinking about our Constitution and how it was rigged and how our power was rigged against us. So I think where we couldn't get anywhere before, that now we can go everywhere with lightning speed. We just got to reach out to all the groups and inform them. One of the neat things here in California is all the researchers and scientists with the University of California. The postdocs are all affiliated with the United Auto Workers local that represents them all. And they're supporting the We the People Amendment, and they can also bring it to their labor councils all throughout the state. So I'm really happy to learn about the new resolution that the Atlanta North Georgia Labor Council gave, because I think they all the other labor councils need to up their game and support that better resolution. And, I think some of these groups of scientists could be bringing those to labor. So in my mind, it's all connected, nature, labor, move to amend.
I agree. I just want to point out a message in the chat. There's a lot of rich stuff in there, if everybody gets a chance to look at it. And we'll also save it in the agenda. But Bob says, it's been great to hear what you've been up to. Would Lawrence consider joining our Saturday 11 a.m. Pacific time online class of Professor Tony Vieira about ecological sustainability? How can we contact you?
Definitely. I should have put my email address and phone number in here because I give it to everybody. I've never had a problem doing that. The easiest one is my initials, LRA, and then OAK, like an oak tree, because I've been planting oaks since I was a baby practically, at gmail.com, LRAOAK at Gmail. And my number is 510-512-3212.
Awesome. And we'll put it in the link on the website as well under Lawrence's thing. We'll also put the PowerPoint, if that's okay with you, Lawrence, so that
No, it's not
others can
LAR, it's
access that.
LRA, Lawrence Robert Abbott. Excuse me, Jenny, I was responding to a comment.
I understand. Awesome. I really appreciate you coming and sharing this with us, Lawrence, and being such a solid eco warrior for so long. And
Thanks for
just
having me. I
awesome
hope
to work with
everybody
you in
gets
so many
excited
ways.
about native plants in their area. And there's a lot of great organizations probably everywhere that anybody could live across the whole country, especially with the homegrown habitats movement. I mean, the national park.
Yeah, make every yard a park. It was funny because before you mentioned it, somebody put that in the chat.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Somebody had put that in the chat.
excellent.
That was cute.
That's wonderful.
The systemic understanding how life's processes influence flood, fire, drought. Yeah, some really great stuff in the chat, and we will put that in the agenda, and so that everyone will have access to all of this information. There's so much
Yeah,
in
if we
here.
had more
I'm
time,
gonna
I
go
would
through
spend
one
a
at a
lot more
time.
time talking about trees because trees can do so much. In the Central Valley, there's a state park called Caswell Memorial State Park right near Lathrop, where I was showing you. And they have a interpretive display in the parking lot that says it can be 100 degrees air temperature, but under the forest canopy, it's going to be in the 70s during the summer. And it's because of evapotranspiration, you know, the evaporation and then the transpiration of water, that all those riparian trees have their roots in the water table. And there's little stipules that they breathe through on their leaves that evaporate and just cool the air as the breeze blows through. And it's just amazing. So, I mean, we really, really need trees in this crazy warming world. And even for the cooling, we need them to temper the winds of the storms and whatnot.
Yeah, what was the old saying that a squirrel could climb a tree on the East Coast and go all the way to the West Coast when
without their feet ever touching the ground. Yep.
Without their feet ever touching the ground. Wouldn't that be a beautiful sight to see if we get to have that again? So thank you again, Lawrence. If anyone has any more questions or wants to learn more about it, we are going to put it on the website, all of the information that he shared, including his contact information. And then Lawrence is always here too every month. So, you know, that's what this is all about anytime. I will be sharing my pictures from natural plants that we'll be planting here at sometime this summer. So maybe if anyone else is doing that. Fernanda, the reason we got into this conversation and how I learned about the secret life of Lawrence and this restoration stuff he's been involved in for so long. And I mean, I knew he was involved in stuff too, but I didn't realize to the extent. And in the last call, we kind of stayed on and kept chatting for a while. And Fernanda and Lawrence are both working on some major restoration projects there in their communities. So today we went, and one of the things we had talked about was fundraising, and talking about grant writing and that kind of stuff. We did go to a class today, Katie and I. So as soon as we get that link from that fundraising thing, we'll share that too, so that if anybody's working on needing funding to implement any of these projects or the projects that you're working on, hopefully this will be really insightful. Both she and I found it fascinating and really valuable information. So we want to share that with y'all as part of the tools, that whatever we could do to help y'all in the work that you're doing. It's great to see you, Geneva. It's been a while. Megan, we have so much to talk about, but we'll do that at another time. I want to open it up for reports from the leaders. This is OpenStack. This is where you get a chance to share with us the things that y'all are working on more broadly too. So I want to open it up. Excited to hear what's going on in your spaces. Go ahead, Geneva.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lawrence, for that wonderful presentation. And I want to make a point about trees. Restoration is absolutely critical, absolutely critical. But right now, we also need to protect our existing forests. There's a huge, political effort under the guise of fuel reduction and wildfire prevention or protection to just start, what they call thinning the forests, which ultimately ends up being logging. They call it forest restoration. They call it fuel reduction. They give it a lot of nice sounding names, but the reality is they're disastrous to forest habitats. They impact watersheds and water retention and movement through the forests. The forests themselves are important for creating and changing, altering, impacting the atmospheric conditions that can lead to rain, for example. So there's, we have maybe about 5%. I think I've heard 5 or 10% of the forests that used to be on this continent. And we really have to work to protect our existing forests for their habitat functions, their CO2 sequestration, wildlife diversity, and so many different things that are problematic with our environment these days. So I just wanted to throw that in there as well. We have to protect what we have, and it's amazing how quickly by a stroke of a pen, somebody allows some really important forest ecosystems to be damaged or destroyed. And that's one of the things that our group, We Advocate Thorough Environmental Review, is working on. We've been working to challenge some of the projects, which are ultimately logging projects in some of our public lands here, protecting northern spotted owl habitat, things like that. We're also working, kind of setting the groundwork for a project of relocating beavers into appropriate areas so that they can restore wetland habitats. We can move them from areas where they may be problematic in the way they interact with what mainly is ranching around here, move them into areas where they won't be problematic for human activities, but help restore watersheds. So that's kind of the two main things that we are working on related to that. We are also not quite as directly related, but we're also trying to agitate to get more environmental groups to start taking a stand for peace, anti-war stands, because of the huge environmental. I mean, there's no question there are huge moral huge moral damage that happens from wars. But and that needs to be addressed, obviously. But as environmental groups, we can educate about the environmental problems and damages from war and make that a moral issue too. So that's what our group is up to. We advocate thorough environmental review. We're up in way northern California.
What is the group called again?
Water.
We advocate thorough environmental review. So our acronym
They
is
are
WATER.
And they're the first group, to my knowledge, that not only endorsed the We the People Amendment, but made it part of their strategic plan to get it passed. And since that time, we've had several other groups, peace or Veterans for Peace, and now labor groups. But I feel like Geneva and Water kind of started that, kicked that can down, and it's rolling down the hill now and picking up some steam. And I think it's exactly the way we need to go to make this happen.
Yeah. And actually,
we're
right now we're working on another e-newsletter that will be promoting MTA. So we're continuing
fantastic.
to kick the can.
We have a great some interesting news about the amendment that we're looking forward to sharing after we finish the reports from leaders in the field. Would anybody else like to share what they're doing right now? I know it's winter in a lot of places, so there's probably not as much energy going on in the environmental sphere, but still much to be done. Would anybody else like to get on stack? Lynn.
Hi.
Please.
Yes,
Hi.
I wrote a bunch in the chat for people, but I'm working to get there's a group called Humanities Team, and it's not TIES, it's TYS, humanitiesteam.org. I forgot to put that one in there, but they're connected with, oh my gosh, and I put it in there, unity.earth/TV/, and they're out of Australia, and they're working on building new communities of the future that are just, like what Lawrence was showing. Beautiful. I mean, edible landscaping crews, and just beautiful new schools, because we have language apps. So what I've been working on with different peace groups, Code Pink too is really critical. You know that, Code Pink groups, and but we've been working with URI, and there's over 4,253 churches actually with spiritually evolutionary consciousness ascension groups, okay, that aren't getting advertised. I put some of that in LinkedIn.com. It's Heaven to Earth groups. Businesses, like I had almost 4,000 before COVID. Just on LinkedIn, they're all Heaven to Earth business, evolving consciousness program businesses. Okay, they're here to build the new cities. Oh, I forgot to put nextcities.org. They're awesome people. Reimagining civics, you'll love them. They're like us. And but else, what's really critical is to make the Vatican pay back. The Vatican has plenty of power and money. It's a nation. It's the biggest nation on the planet, okay? And it has to pay back for what it's done to the other cultures. It's in the background of devastation. So the Vatican nation, and that's what we're doing with these URI groups, and URI.org and Humanities Team and what have you, is us get the legislation with our kids. We have 600 political science colleges, and the answers lie within. If anyone's angry or upset, the answers are inside of them. It might even be past lives that they took out of the Bible in 300 AD. So anyway, my main thing is multicultural alternative healing centers open 24/7. That's my real thing. I was a registered nurse in 2 countries, and single payer healthcare systems. But this getting the Vatican nation, getting our kids on this to get the pressure, all churches, and they can go through that URI because it's Parliament of Religions. And it's like I said, 4,250 or something. Neil Donald Walsh, a bunch of people that are Body, Mind, Spirit Expo people, right? Conscious evolutionary, expos, the conscious life expos people and stuff are on it. Okay, so, and get the legislation ripping, because we've got the techno too, and to get it through the legislation, to get all the churches, and Care Stanford's ready, because they do remote viewing and psychic empowerment programs. So Care Stanford too are really critical. Education, Care Stanford, EDU, and those groups can actually get our World Health shifted, to unite NATO, World Health, NATO, and the United Nations, human rights groups, and unite all militaries, stand down, clean up your friggin' mess. They know who made it. They know who's responsible. Our Pentagon, audit the Pentagon, not our good, legislation that we were working on for human rights and kids. No, they have to audit everything that's got ties to warfare, anything warfare related programs, and that's the Pentagon. And all military industrial complex worldwide. And that involves, like I said, the drug war has to go all green. All the money in drug war phenomena goes into foods and plant medicine, 3,000 ancient plant medicines. I put it in there. But these people that are on, that I put in there, are ready to help our kids. Those guys you guys that work with the kids, we have 600 political science colleges that are ready. These kids are ready. They just need this information to show them. We can take that money and civic actions. I put it in there, civicaction.org. The libraries, our USA libraries started them when they started seeing what was happening in the schools, when they took home ec out, and then they took, just pushing for hate and more war and hate and division. And so anyway, those, I put them in there, most of them. So that's what I've been working on. And again, it's really obvious, because Big Pharma took over the Vatican and started the experiments. And I've been up against, I quit nursing in 1992 because I couldn't give all those drugs to people anymore. And especially the psych wards. So that, and the waste alone right now from Big Pharma, people have no idea how poisonous what we're working with. And they pair it up with chemical and biological warfare that people have no clue, not a clue about. It's grotesque. So those systems that are tied anyway related, and now we can do it because we have EarthCam, we have Google, we have cell phones, anything related to warfare projects, they got to clean up their mess, and they have to pay for it. So that means all of the people that have anything related to our government funds that are related in any way to military tourism, all asset forfeiture, clean it up, and they go to clean up, because the churches have to help pay people to care, sole purpose jobs. Oh, all 501c3s. Right now we have 1.45 million 501c3s in our USA. Start hiring. You hiring them. You stop teaching our kids to go to war and guns and hate, and hire them. Start 501c3s. You start hiring them, because we can do it. All money's been made up. It always has been. And crypto sucks. Crypto takes 50 more nuclear power plants with all the poisonous waste, and they take water, and that money is our money. It's we the people's money, and our kids and you guys we can get it back and use it for good. Thank you. Amen.
Thank you so much for that, Lynn. You're in the presence of folks who align with your thinking, for sure. Fernanda, Alliance for Just Money. And the intersections that you just made are intersections that we all are working towards, right? And so thank you for sharing that work. And we'll again share the chat and put it in the agenda, so that
Just want to say thank you. Aho, aho, aho. The Native American caucuses are out there. They're starting to happen, and they should be in charge of our Department of Interior, period, now, and EPA too. So I put a bunch of references, but it's us to up and our kids political science colleges. They just don't know how to do it. And you guys know, you know how to. Yeah, I love you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I love the visionary work that you were doing right there, because I was seeing how I was seeing it as you were speaking it.
God, yes.
And totally agree with that. Want to open it up for anyone else. I also want to make sure that we give time to give the announcement on the We the People Amendment if folks are interested in that. Well, let's go ahead and jump to that, and then we'll do any calls of action strategy. I do see your call of action that you put in the chat here with Code Pink's action happening. So let me open it up. Cole or Greg, would you like to share where we're at on the MTA updates?
Go ahead, Cole.
Yeah, I can. Hi, everybody. My name's Cole Bennett. I'm a co-director with Move Some In. Thank you all for being here. We have, in some ways, a very exciting news, in some ways, a little confusing news, but we got a call. The plan was we were going to continue. We were going to reintroduce the We the People Amendment in the 119th Congress under the same number, House Joint Resolution 54. There's no real reason for that other than it's symbolic and it makes it easier for us to not have to change things. But and we just like 54 because that's what it's been. But so the plan was we were going to originally reintroduce around the end of February, beginning of March, because that was what we were that Representative Jayapal's office had told us would be kind of the amount of time that it would take for 54 to come around. They were on 39 as of a couple days ago, the last we heard. I got a call last night from our new point person, Kenny Mock, in Pramila Jayapal's office. He's legislative counsel. First of all, we had a meeting with him today. He's very enthusiastic. He's down with the We the People Amendment. But he also told us that a single Republican congressperson, and Jenny, who was that again? You put it in the chat earlier.
Was Clyde Andrew, who is, I think it's Georgia's 8th, so it's right in your backyard.
Man.
There,
I don't
Cole,
even know.
one of your buddies. It's
We're just got a lot of
Representative
great people
Clyde.
and some characters. But this guy, Andrew Clyde, put in like about 15 joint resolutions or so, and so in terms of the legislative calendar, House Joint Resolution 54 came up a lot earlier than we were expecting. We were planning on going to DC, having a big event, and kind of trying to drum up some press support around the We the People Amendment, around the reintroduction. Now that this is all to preface the exciting news that the We the People Amendment has been reintroduced into the 119th Congress as of last night as House Joint Resolution 54. Somewhere we have there's a for it, but anyway, a little bit of a surprise considering we weren't expecting for so many resolutions to go through before ours did. But in terms of where it puts us, we're still excited to really be in person in DC and do a lot of in-person lobbying, as well as we're talking with Representative Jayapal's office about having a press event. This is all very new considering it was surprise introduced last night, but we're pretty happy with where we are. We have 28 original co-sponsors. That number is, we had 20, I believe, in the 118th when it got introduced. And it's also being introduced earlier in the 119th. And really the gist of, I'm sorry that I'm starting to ramble here, but really the gist of what, where we stand with this, faced with the behemoth of a corrupt, a more blatantly corrupt Trump government and a Republican supermajority in basically all branches of government is we we don't know how much of a chance this has to actually pass in this Congress. Who knows? Trump is, in some ways, and I mean this in the worst possible way, a wild card. But, the reality is we're probably not going to have the votes. But now with this, put behind the eight ball in terms of Republican control of the government, corporate control of the government, now I think is really the time that, we're seeing a lot of the things that we've been talking about in a much more blatant and in your face fashion. So, Elon Musk and all the billionaires coming in and very overtly having influence over the government. Now is really the time to advance the issue of corporate constitutional rights that the We the People Amendment seeks to solve. And in doing so, also really raise up the We the People Amendment and really get people talking about it, talking to their representatives about it, whether they take corporate money, corporate PAC money or not. I have some hands up in that. That, in a very long roundabout way, sums up, I think, where we are. But I have Lawrence on stack and then Megan.
Is there any place we can go to find out who the 28 original co-sponsors are? Because last Congress, when it first started, it was hard for me to find anything with regular web searches for quite a while.
I just saved it, and it's always on our website under the amendment.
Okay, thank you.
But it's in the chat right now. I just shared the link.
Yeah,
thank you.
And yeah, and this cat, or excuse me, this rep, Rep Clyde, he 15 to 20, like you said, and they were all overturning some kind of like environmental protection or executive order that banned oil drilling and fracking. I mean, it just absolutely the worst HJRs you could possibly imagine in a flurry of them. Go ahead, Megan.
Yeah, I don't know about the rest of you, but I kind of feel like we have come to the point where corporate rule has really come home to roost. And here we are on the verge of oligarchy. And verge, I don't think it's even a verge anymore. But I think that it's an especially important time for us to start speaking truth to power about this. And, I want to say to my representatives who have signed on, sometimes with some reluctance and a lot of pushing from their constituents, that, this is what happens when you don't provide, freedom for people and you give constitutional rights to corporations. So I just really feel like, what did you expect? This is it. So,
isn't this what we've been telling you?
Yes. So it's kind of
our bullhorn hasn't been
I'm going to be writing to my reps.
I want to give everybody an opportunity to talk. Thank you, Greg, for dropping in those pieces in the chat, and Lynn, and I love that song, Moji. I'm going to go ahead with Geneva, and then Fernanda, if you want to give us an update and try to set a time for the last singing tree, and then we'll get Moji's question in. Go ahead, Geneva.
Oh, I just wanted to comment, I thought it was so telling at the inauguration where at the last minute, Trump moves the inauguration inside so all of his rich buddies don't have to deal with the cold, and leaves the thousands of his supporters who had gone to Washington, D.C. to watch the inauguration left out in the cold. I think it is just such a metaphor for his whole administration. I wish there was some way of, creating some visual meme of contrast contrasting the two, or demonstrating that contrast. I think what, there's, my mother used to say, all these politicians are corrupt. Corruption in politics is not something new. I think what is really sad is that now it's become normalized so visibly in the Trump administration. Just normalized the power grabs, the money, all of it is just out there in the open, as if it is just business as usual, and we're all supposed to just suck it up. We're in frightening times. It's important to work together. And I'll pass.
Well said. 110% agree with that, Geneva. 110%.
Can I jump in again just really quick? I'm sorry. I needed to say one more thing. Jessica Den, Denson, YouTube. I see Cole. I'm thinking of him. Jessica Den, Denson. She's got a YouTube. She works with constitutional lawyers, and they have over 200,000 already signed, getting people, the kids, it's you guys, take them out. They're going to do some arresting, impeach again.
If you could put that in the chat, Lynn, that would be great. So folks can resource from there. That would be good. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to pass it over to Fernanda and then Moji, okay?
What's my prompt? To talk about the singing tree progress? Yeah.
Yeah, the singing tree, and see when we're, yeah, please.
Well, folks, we are still trying to design a collaborative mural to help showcase the vision of Move to Amend in that artistic format and have us all work together. So let's pick a day where we can all get together and work on it. Maybe we should just send out a doodle poll or something, Jenny. That sounds practical.
Does that sound good to everybody? A doodle poll and see? Okay. And there was something else I wanted to say on that. And with that doodle poll, I want to ask, does this time work for everybody this Thursday? It's a new year, people's schedules change. I just want to make sure that this is the most opportune time for everybody. Would it be better on another day? Are this Thursday still good? Second Thursday of the month. Still works for everybody? Awesome. Okay, we'll keep it as it is. No shopping day. Right. Other thing. I wasn't even aware of that one.
It's just come up kind of recently, so the word is spreading.
I do have that visual that Geneva was talking. I think it was Geneva that asked for the visual for being left out in the cold. No, that was okay. I have that. So as soon as we hear from Moji as we're going out, I will and after calls of strategy. So go ahead, Moji, if you can let us know, and if there's any calls for strategy or calls to action that anyone else wants to share after that. Go ahead, Moji.
Attention, Fernanda. Here is a singing tree. I'm going to sing with my non-singer's voice what I wrote on February 12th, 2012.
Yes, you shared lovely songs last time.
It is based on We Shall Overcome. So God help your ears. We shall on person. We shall on person. We shall on person corporations. Because we are sane, we do believe corporations are not persons. Money is not a speech. Money is not a speech. Money is not a speech. Get this into your head. Because we are sane, we do believe we shall on dollar a speech. So
Thank you, Moji. Thank you. Thank you for
thank you.
that.
That's how much of a stalwart supporter of Move to Amend I've been. And here
I
is
love
the
it.
link to the Chambers
Using
of Compassion or Intersectional Circle that I hope that people can, because we have on the other side chambers of commerce, which systemically collaborate across industries, but we as various tribes of civil society, we do not have a place that is called the same thing everywhere, like the chambers of commerce, in order to do systemic movement building across civil society cause. And that's what prevents the formation of the 3.5% or the critical mass. Erica Chenoweth and Noam Chomsky are among the endorsers of this project. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Moji. Thanks for that invite. Thanks for that clarification in the chat. I am proud to say that I haven't shopped at Walmart in over 10 years. They're not going to notice me not being there, but I will be participating for sure. And I think those passive, that's what we were talking about with when we did the collaboration for the World Revolution book with Cool World and Adbusters. It was that was the thing, it's going to take these little acts that is going to grow that overall revolutionary abilities that we have, and little pieces of silly little memes. I want to open it up for any calls to action, any other invites that anybody wants to share, any actions. Again, we'll put this in the agenda so that everybody can see it. Our next call is March 13th. We'll send out a digital poll to see that we'll have the information if you were unable to make it to one or both of the first Singing Tree events. It's really a way to collaborate artistically. It was a lot of fun, and what comes out of that will be put together on a banner that we will be using when we do actions, national actions, like we did in Chicago and DC and New York in the past 2 years. So just wanted to raise that up again. It's really a phenomenal project. So this is kind of silly, but I wanted to share this because you were like, is there a visual that would signify or kind of show what being left out in the snow? And I saw this. It's a little petty. I'll give y'all that, but I wanted to share it anyway. So
snows so much in Connecticut, and somebody went and did the sidewalks on this block and didn't do this one house. All the rest of the sidewalks are done, and I think this is why. Y'all, it snows so much in Connecticut.
That's great.
Sorry, I thought that might sum it up right there. It's happening. But right.
No problem. They have rugged individualism on their side.
Right. Did everybody's sidewalk? It's so much snow. Except this one.
Well, they've been giving us a snow job for a long time. Time to turn the table.
Thank you all. Buy nothing for me. Versus medicine clothing. Just one day. It's easy enough, right? Cash and no credit, right? Everything's plastic too. Even the money. So plastic signification of it. I love y'all. Thank you for all that you do in your communities and in this world, and for who you are, and always coming to this space as your genuine selves. This would be a really lonely road if I wasn't on this journey with y'all. So thank you for all you do. We'll see you soon.